Representative Santora.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Secretary, thank you. Focusing my primary area is back to the potential divestiture of these properties that you're going to be closing. So the Pittsburgh property, how many acres is it?
24.
So 24 acres, okay. So my understanding, except for the fact that there's a prison there, it's a very good neighborhood. And by closing that prison, the value of that land is going to be extremely high. What I'd hate, and I know this is probably more for general services, but I want to put it in your ear as well. I would like to see us look at that as a post-development sale in the sense of let them go out, get their approvals, let the developers come in, make offers based on what they are trying to get approved versus selling it as a vacant piece of land or an empty building. There's a lot of value in the steel. Shouldn't cost too much money to demo that building with the value in the steel that's inside. And the opportunities there, you could have a mixed use on 24 acres. On 10 acres, you could put 500 units of apartments. You're talking $30 million, 100 grand, or 60 grand a door. If we did residential there and a developer came in and offered a residential product at 500 units on those same 10 acres, you could talk $100,000 a door. You could be $50 million into the Commonwealth. I don't know if it goes to your department. I don't know where it goes, but it's good money that could come in versus selling an empty building. I ask that you look into that, and I ask when you're talking to general services that they look at that. And I will do the same because that's how we should be looking at each and every property. We should not be selling it as just vacant buildings.
Yeah, and DCED would be the other group.
DCED?
Yeah.
Excellent. Then, is that building for sale yet?
No, we still are occupied till the mid-June, end of June.
I understand, but you're closing that facility. You don't need anything legislatively to close that facility. You're closing. We should be moving on that now. That 4 months is significant in the fact you've got $3 million in your budget to mothball that unit or that facility. If you've got to do it for 2 years, now we're talking $6 million. Let's get the clock ticking. Let's get the property on the market. Let's figure out, I know you're meeting with the redevelopment committee and everything else, but the best people to do that is the private sector, the people that are actually going to end up developing those properties to come in and tell you what they can make of that. I've got a little experience in over a decade and a half of repurposing brownfield properties. And that's what we would do. We would go in and tell people what we could do with it and what the value was and really increase the value of those properties.
So I think the first step is the appraisal, and I don't know where that fits into what you're but DGS is starting that process. I believe that's the linchpin to the state doing anything, and that process started. Yeah. But I'll defer to you. You got
that appraisal is a waste of time and money because until you know what a developer wants to do with that property, it's nothing. They're going to go and they're going to do it based on certain values, and if they could look at self-storage instead of high-end apartments, there's a lot of opportunity. Somebody should be meeting with the private sector, let them come in with their appraisers and eat some of that cost. But that's neither here. That's a conversation for general services. I just hope when you guys are looking at these things, you could bring it up in your conversations that we should be looking at fully approved before we close. Let's put a little skin in the game and let's take a little risk and close after they've gotten approved. That way we're maximizing the profits to the Commonwealth. The second thing, and I got to tell you, I think some of your programs are awesome. I was sitting here hearing, I didn't know a lot about them. However, when I hear about mandatory minimums, we can call it what we want. When we're talking about the opioid crisis we have going on, we're talking about the heroin dealers, they're purveyors of death. And that's a quote from my superintendent of police back home. Purveyors of death, and they should be treated that way. And they need to be locked up in your prisons as what they are. They're either attempting murder or they're murdering people when they die from overdoses. And I really hope that people see that. It is a major, major crisis in our Commonwealth and across the country. But they need to be sentenced to the maximum they possibly can be sentenced, and they should be treated as purveyors of death.
Yep, and the sentencing guidelines, judges sentence within those, I believe, over 90% of the time, and they accomplish the same thing.
Understood, but just to be clear, if there's anything I can do to make that, a sentence of murder, I would do it today. Thank you.